Hello, everyone. Wishing you a joyful and energetic new day. Today, we continue following the emotional and turbulent journey of love between James and Ly Tu Diep, a relationship that has endured countless trials, misunderstandings, and moments when it seemed there was no turning back. After a long period of separation and doubt that almost tore them apart, James and Diep finally found their way back to each other. Their genuine love helped them heal past wounds, let go of resentment, and now they understand and cherish each other more deeply than ever before. But just when happiness seemed within reach, a storm came crashing down. James's old enemy, John, has returned. And this time, he's not just targeting James's career. He's attacking his most vulnerable spot, his family and the woman he loves. In a ruthless move, John kidnaps both James's mother and Diep, demanding James hand over his entire company, or risk losing them forever. Faced with a life or death choice, James stands at a crossroads. Will he sacrifice the career he's spent his entire youth building to save his loved ones? Or will he find the strength to fight back, to protect both his family and everything he's worked so hard for? The answer lies ahead. Don't forget to follow the channel and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of the heart-pounding twists and turns in this powerful and emotional love story. That rainy afternoon, the sky was covered in a heavy gray, and the atmosphere hung thick in the air, as if foreshadowing an impending storm. Raindrops tapped rhythmically against the tall office windows, echoing through the silence of James's workspace and deepening the already oppressive mood. A faint, cold light still glowed from his office on the top floor. James sat alone, surrounded by towering stacks of documents, his weary eyes fixed on the financial reports that were anything but promising. Numbers don't lie, and what they revealed was a slow, calculated unraveling of everything he had built. Contracts were being canceled without warning. Longtime partners were withdrawing without explanation. The company was bleeding, not from a single wound, but from 1,000 invisible cuts. James clenched his fists, his gaze sharpening. This wasn't coincidence. Someone was orchestrating this from the shadows, manipulating every move, trying to dismantle the empire he had poured his soul into. And then, one name rose to the surface of his thoughts. John, once a trusted friend, once a close business partner, now a sworn enemy. James remembered all too well the betrayal. John had embezzled company funds, exploiting his position for personal gain. When James uncovered the truth, there was no remorse, only cold, calculated defiance. John had severed all ties, walking away without looking back, leaving behind a trail of resentment and vengeance. Now, James could sense it clearly, the stench of revenge lingering in every failed deal, every unanswered call, every quiet refusal. A storm was coming, and James knew he had to be ready, not just to defend his company, but to protect the people he loved from the claws of a past that refused to stay buried. An unknown number flashed across James's phone screen. Without hesitation, he picked up, and the voice on the other end froze the blood in his veins. I've taken your mother and the woman you love. If you call the police, don't expect to ever see them again. For a moment, James's heart stopped. A cold chill shot down his spine. Then his pulse began to pound violently in his chest, as if it were about to burst free. All the sounds around him disappeared, replaced by the deafening roar of panic inside his mind. He shot up from his chair, gripping the phone so tightly his knuckles turned white. The woman he loved, the one who had stood by him through every storm. His mother, who had spent her life caring for him, worrying for him, loving him unconditionally. Now, both of them were in the hands of a man who had long since abandoned any trace of humanity. James called the number back, desperate to negotiate, but the only reply was a cold, sinister chuckle, full of satisfaction and malice. Transfer ownership of your company, full access to every bank account and confidential file. You have 24 hours. And just like that, the call was cut off. No room for pleading, no chance for discussion. James stood motionless. Then, as if his legs could no longer hold him, he collapsed into his chair. His hands trembled. He braced himself against the table, trying to keep it together while his mind spiraled into chaos. Should he surrender or fight back? If he gave in, he would lose everything: the company, his life's work, the dream he had poured his soul into building. But if he called the police, if John wasn't bluffing, he could lose the two people he loved most in this world. This was no longer just blackmail, it was a deadly gamble, with two lives hanging in the balance. And James knew, with every passing second, he was being pushed closer to a point of no return. Just a few days ago, James and Diêp were still eagerly planning their upcoming vacation. Diêp was glowing with excitement, chattering endlessly about the pretty outfits she wanted to bring. And his mother, as always, called him every evening, reminding him not to overwork, to eat properly, and to take care of his health. Those simple, familiar moments now felt like distant memories from another life. James sat silently in the dark, his reddened eyes fixed on a photograph in the corner of his desk. In the picture, he stood between Diêp and his mother, all three of them smiling brightly. A soft light bathed their faces, capturing a world of peace and love that he was now on the verge of losing. For hours, James was tormented by fear and responsibility. He was not the kind of man who could turn his back while the people he loved were held hostage by a ruthless enemy. But he also couldn't bow to the threats of a cold-blooded criminal like John. And then, James made his choice. With dark circles under his eyes and a pale, drawn face, he drove straight to the city police headquarters. Without hesitation or secrecy, he requested an immediate meeting with the Special Investigation Unit. He laid everything out, from the threatening phone call to his deep suspicions about John and every small clue he had gathered. The police sprang into action. A special task force was assembled on the spot. Technical experts began tracing the mysterious number that had called James. Simultaneously, the security team combed through surveillance footage from areas where Diêp and James's mother were known to frequent. Every movement, every frame was examined with precision. Even the smallest detail could become the key to saving lives. James was no longer alone. Now, he had an entire team behind him, and most importantly, he still held on to faith. That justice could prevail. That love and courage would never bow to the darkness. The investigation began in an atmosphere tense as a drawn bowstring. The entire special task force was placed on high alert. They knew every passing minute was a lost opportunity, and the enemy they were facing was no amateur. First, The technical team focused on tracing the anonymous call made to James's phone. Although the kidnapper had used advanced methods to mask his identity, multiple layers of virtual rerouting and signal jammers, nothing could escape the investigative system's reach. After several hours of data analysis, they identified the last point of signal transmission: an abandoned house on the outskirts of the city. Simultaneously, another team was dispatched to review surveillance footage from areas where James's mother and Diêp frequently visited. They discovered something suspicious. On the day she disappeared, James's mother had been followed by a black, unlicensed car after leaving the supermarket. The camera only caught a blurry angle, but the vehicle's shape and movements clearly indicated it was tailing her. Next was Diêp. The last footage of her showed her leaving a cafe, and just 5 minutes later, the same black vehicle appeared right behind. More frightening still, the car turned into the alley where her phone signal was lost. The deeper the investigation went, the more the clues pointed to one man: John. But he had vanished without a trace. No bank accounts, no contact with known associates, no activity on social media. Everything was wiped clean, as if he had planned this abduction for a long time. Still, the police did not give up. They started combing through all of John's former assets: apartments he once rented, properties he once owned. Among them, one stood out: an abandoned farmhouse deep in the forest, purchased under a company name 3 years ago. Isolated, without surveillance, no cell signal. It was the perfect place to keep hostages without being discovered. That very night, a rapid response unit was deployed to the site, coordinating with the special task force. James was there too, seated in the command vehicle, silent and visibly anxious. His hands clenched tightly, trembling at every terrifying scenario running through his mind. He tortured himself with thoughts. What if we're too late? What if they've already been hurt? Every minute passed like an eternity. The special ops team moved in silently. Heat sensors and mini drones were deployed to pinpoint the exact location of the hostages. And then, they detected 2 living signatures in a basement room. A raid order was given. In the dark, the officers stormed in like a whirlwind. Gunshots rang out, shouts echoed, boots thundered against the cold cement floor. Just minutes later, James received a call through the internal comm system. "We've found the hostages. Both are safe." He nearly burst into tears. After days and nights battling fear, heartbreak, and impossible choices, James hadn't faltered. He had made the right decision, refusing to yield, refusing to lose himself, and protecting the ones he loved most. When James saw his mother and Diêp being brought out from the cold, dark basement, his heart felt like it was about to burst. He rushed forward and held them tightly, as if letting go would make everything disappear like a fading dream. And then, he couldn't hold it in any longer. James broke down, crying like a lost child who had finally found his way back home. Those tears weren't just from the fear that had passed. They carried the weight of guilt, of deep regret. James blamed himself, believed that his success, power, and ambition had dragged his loved ones into this spiral of danger. Choking back tears, he apologized. His mother held his hand tightly, her eyes filled with forgiveness. And Diêp, with her familiar gentleness, leaned against his shoulder and softly whispered, "I'll always be by your side. I believe in you, because I know you would never abandon me or your mom." That one sentence tore through all the walls James had built inside. In that moment, he realized success, wealth, prestige, they can all be lost. But if you lose the people you love, then no amount of achievement will ever mean anything. James understood. The greatest victory in life isn't reaching the top. It's holding on to the hands of those you love, even through the storm. Meanwhile, John, once a man of cold confidence and calculated cruelty, had become nothing more than a broken shadow. As the police led him away in handcuffs, his eyes no longer burned with vengeance, only hollow despair. He couldn't understand that hatred blinds people to what truly matters. While James fought with love, John lived in the illusion of revenge, and that alone sealed his defeat from the very beginning. James's story wasn't just a rescue mission. It was a journey of growth, a journey that taught him, and all of us, that success isn't about what you have in your hands, but about who is still standing beside you. And James achieved exactly that when he bravely chose his family over his career. James thought everything was back to normal, that after the storm, peace had finally returned. But is the data really over? A small relationship left in the darkness of the basement. A strange name has just appeared in the investigation file, and a secret data was lost before the alarm was activated. The person behind John may still be watching, and the fight James went through may just be the prelude to a much larger conspiracy. Don't forget to follow the channel and the notification bell so you don't miss the next episode, where James's hidden past will gradually be revealed and the darkness that never left will return. Are you ready? The story doesn't end here.
Khi James nhìn thấy Diệp và mẹ được đưa ra từ căn hầm tối tăm lạnh lẽo, anh cảm xúc như vỡ òa. Anh lao đến ôm chặt lấy họ, như thể rằng nếu buông tay tất cả sẽ tan biến như một giấc mơ tàn. Và rồi anh không thể kìm nén được nữa. James bật khóc nức nở như một đứa trẻ lạc đường vừa tìm lại mái nhà thân thuộc. Những giọt nước mắt ấy không chỉ là nỗi sợ hãi đã qua, mà còn là sự dằn vặt, là cảm giác tội lỗi đè nặng trong lòng. James cảm thấy tất cả là lỗi của mình, rằng chính sự thành công, quyền lực, tham vọng của anh đã kéo những người thân yêu vào vòng xoáy nguy hiểm. Anh nghẹn ngào nói lời xin lỗi mẹ. Mẹ anh siết lấy tay con trai, ánh mắt đầy tha thứ. Còn Diệp vẫn với sự dịu dàng quen thuộc tựa đầu vào vai James. Chỉ một câu nói mà như xé toạc nước vòng lệ của James. Trong khoảnh khắc ấy, anh nhận ra một điều: thành công, tiền bạc, danh vọng, tất cả đều có thể đánh mất. Nhưng đánh mất những người mình yêu thương dù có bao nhiêu thành tựu cũng trở nên vô nghĩa.